The maintenance orbital, designated GC091, Memorial, hung in the silent, star-dusted blackness. Below it, swathed in the soft blue and white of clouds and vast, empty oceans, was Earth. To the Galactic Compact, it was a quiet, sad monument. A graveyard world. To the few humans on the orbital, like Jay, it was a beautiful, haunting ghost. Jay moved through the archive, a vast, cool chamber where the physical remnants of a dead civilization were kept. His footsteps made no sound on the soft floor. His job was simple: catalog, preserve, and sometimes wonder. Today, he was indexing a collection of 20th century optical discs, their data long since transferred to the station's systems. He held a small round disc in his gloved hand. A music disc, according to the label. He tried, as he often did, to imagine the noise it once held. The archive was full of such silent things. It was his whole world. In another part of the station, Sujin listened to the constant, soft hum of machinery. Her world was one of wires, power flows, and system diagnostics. The Galactic Compact had left a planetary monitoring array in orbit around Earth. It watched for seismic activity, atmospheric changes, and energy signatures. It was a watch for a corpse. For 500 years, its reports had been the same: nominal, quiet, dead. Sujin ran her weekly checks. The screens glowed with soft green light, showing lines of data that barely changed. She was about to mark the log complete when a flicker caught her eye. Deep in the sub-level readouts, a new line of data had appeared. It was a harmonic tremor reading from the planetary core. It was incredibly faint, almost buried in the background noise of the Earth's own natural, slow cooling. She frowned. It was not a normal geological signature. It was too regular. A slow, deep pulse, like a single beat of a massive, sleeping heart. She tagged it for review and sent a note to the station commander, Tay. The response was quick and typical. Anomaly logged. Probable sensor echo or deep mental shift. Continue scheduled maintenance. Sujin was not convinced. Echoes did not have such a clean, rhythmic pattern. She pulled up the raw data stream and isolated the frequency. It was a low, resonant hum, a tone so deep it felt more like a vibration in her bones than a sound. She saved the data packet on a private drive, a small act of rebellion against the station's passive routine. That evening, in the common observation lounge, Jay and Sujin watched the planet turn. The great cities were dark patches now, swallowed by green. The lights of Earth were the lights of the Compact's memorial beacons, not of homes. The old stories say it used to glow at night, Jay said softly, his eyes on the dark continents. Like a field of stars had fallen to the ground. Sujin nodded, her mind still on the tremor. My monitors picked up a strange reading today. From the core. Commander Tay says it's nothing. Jay looked at her. He was a man of history, of past patterns. Sujin was a woman of systems, of present function. They rarely spoke of anything but station business. What kind of reading? A pulse. A single deep harmonic. It felt intentional. She used the word carefully. Intentional? Jay smiled a little, a sad smile. The Earth is a rock, Sujin. A beautiful, dead rock. Rocks don't have intentions. I know, she said. But she opened her personal pad and played the processed audio of the tremor for him. The sound filled the small space between them, a deep, bone-shaking thrum that lasted for exactly 7 seconds before fading. Jay's smile vanished. He listened, his head tilted. He played it again. Then a third time. His eyes lost their distant, sad look and sharpened. That's not geological, he whispered. The pattern. It's too clean. It's a C-sharp fundamental with a perfect fifth harmonic. Nature doesn't make perfect fifths from planetary cores. He stood up abruptly. Can you send that file to me? The raw spectral analysis? Sujin, surprised by his intensity, nodded. Why? What do you think it is? I don't know, Jay said, already moving toward the archive door. But I know where to look. Alone in the archive, Jay pulled up the oldest, most fragmented databases. These were not the cleaned, translated histories the compact provided. These were scrambled, corrupted data salvaged from old Earth networks in the years after the collapse. Most of it was useless. Fragments of entertainment broadcasts, broken financial records, lost personal messages. He searched for keywords: core tap, planetary harmonic, geothermal resonance. For hours, he found nothing. Then, buried in a directory labeled Infrastructure Legacy Theoretical, he found a file. It was mostly corrupted, but the header was clear. Project Gaia's Heart, Primary Activation Sequence, Subroutine, Heartbeat. The file was a schematic, impossibly complex, showing layers of the Earth's interior, not as geology, but as engineering. And there, in a corner, was a small, clear notation of a projected resonance frequency for system wake-up diagnostics. He ran the numbers. The frequency matched Sujin's tremor. Exactly. His hands were cold. The archive felt suddenly like a tomb, and he was the only one inside who was still breathing. He called Sujin. When her face appeared on his screen, he saw she was back in the monitoring hub, looking tired. You were right, he said, his voice quiet. It was intentional. It's a wake-up call. He shared his screen, showing her the schematic fragment. She stared, her engineer's mind racing over the implications. The scale was impossible. Planetary engineering on that level was compact-level technology, something humanity was supposed to have never achieved. This is a diagnostic pulse, she breathed. If this is real, it means the system is checking to see if it can start. And if it's checking, she trailed off, a frightening, exhilarating thought taking shape. Then the start sequence might be next. Jay finished. They knew they had to take this to Commander Tay. He was a good man, cautious, responsible. He followed compact protocols to the letter. They went to his office together, presenting the data. Tay listened, his face growing more and more stern. You are suggesting, he said slowly, that our ancestors built engines inside the planet, and that they're turning on after 500 years of silence. The data suggests it. Sir, Sujin said, the data suggests a sensor ghost and an archivist's overactive imagination, Tay replied, though his voice lacked its usual firmness. He looked at the schematic on his screen. These are pre-collapse fragments. They are myths, children's stories. The compact's historical assessment is clear. Humanity burned itself out. They did not hibernate. With respect, Commander, Jay said, the compact's assessment is based on what they found, a silent world. What if the silence was the point? Tay sighed. My orders are to maintain the memorial and report any anomalies. This qualifies as an anomaly. I will file a report with the compact liaison. Standard review time is 30 cycles. Until then, you will not speak of this. You will not investigate further. Is that clear? It was clear, and it was impossible. As they left, Sujin looked at Jay. 30 cycles? If this is real, we don't have 30 cycles. What if the next step isn't a pulse? What if it's ignition? Jay nodded. He thought of old Yun, the keeper of the oral histories, who was always scolded for talking about the sleeping giants in the earth. He had always thought they were just stories. Now he wasn't sure. We need to know more, Jay said. We need to find the rest of this schematic. We need to understand what they built. And if we find it? Sujin asked. Jay looked down through the observation window at the planet below. No longer a quiet grave, but a puzzle box of unimaginable scale. Then we find out if we're caretakers of a museum, he said, or watchmen for a sleeping giant. The order from Commander Tay sat between Jay and Sujin like a wall. Do not investigate. File the anomaly. Wait. But the Earth did not wait. 3 cycles after their meeting, the tremor returned. This time, it was not a single pulse. It was a sequence. 5 distinct, deep harmonic tones, spaced exactly 11 minutes apart. Sujin watched the data stream in real time from her private terminal in a maintenance closet she had repurposed. Each tone was a perfect note, forming a strange, slow chord that vibrated through the planetary monitoring array. It was a song from the center of the world. She called Jay on a secure channel. It's talking, she said, her voice tight with awe and fear. It's a sequence. It's following a pattern. Jay was in the archive, surrounded by the silent past. He had been searching for any other fragment related to Project Gaia's heart. He had found only one more file, this one labeled Anchor Points. It was a list of coordinates: Gibraltar, the Mariana Trench, the East African Rift, the Ross Ice Shelf, places of great geological power. It's checking the anchor points, Jay said, looking at the list and then at the tremor log Sujin sent. A system diagnostic, making sure the foundations are still there. If this is a diagnostic, Sujin reasoned, her engineer's mind clicking through the logic, then a diagnostic needs power, a trickle. And if the diagnostic passes, she didn't finish. They both knew. Then the main systems would engage. They needed to see it. They needed proof that would break through Tay's caution. Sujin had an idea. It was dangerous and would certainly end her career if caught. The orbital station was powered by a compact fusion reactor, but it also had large capacitor banks that stored energy for peak operations. She proposed a controlled, tiny power surge, directed not at the station, but down an old, mostly forgotten communications laser that was nominally used for scanning the planetary surface. They could use it like a key, sending a burst of energy to the primary coordinate on Jay's list. Gibraltar. We are not turning anything on, Sujin argued quietly over the comm. We are just knocking. If there is nothing there, the energy will dissipate. No harm. If there is something, we might trigger a system we don't understand, Jay countered, but his heart wasn't in it. He felt the same pull, the need to know. They needed a third person, someone with access codes Sujin didn't have. They thought of Hana, the compact liaison officer. She was sharp, ambitious, and strictly by the book. But she was also practical, and she respected results. Sujin arranged a meeting in a secure storage bay, a neutral place with no audio logs. Hana listened, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. They showed her the tremor data, the schematic fragment, the coordinate list. You want to fire station power at a historical site based on a corrupted file and a noise in the ground, she summarized. Her tone flat. Yes, Sujin said simply. It is a violation of 17 different compact memorial protocols, Hana stated. It could be seen as an act of cultural desecration. The culture is us, Hana, Jay said softly. And it might not be dead. What if we are the ones desecrating it by ignoring its wake-up call? Hana was silent for a long time. She looked at the data, at the perfect, unnatural harmonic sequence. Her ambition warred with her duty. Her duty was to the compact, but her blood was from Earth. Finally, she let out a slow breath. I can get you a 10-second authorization window for the comm laser. A system test. It will log as a routine check. The power surge will have to be small, barely a flicker. And if anything goes wrong, I never spoke to you. It was enough. The operation was tense. Jay monitored the archive's historical feeds for any surface changes at Gibraltar. Sujin stood at the main engineering console, her fingers hovering over the controls. Hana was in the command nexus, creating a distraction by running a fake diagnostic on the long-range sensors. Authorization window opens in 10 seconds. Hana's voice came through, cool and professional. You have 10 seconds of beam time. Ready, Sujin whispered. 3, 2, 1. Beam is live. Sujin initiated the power surge. A tiny fraction of the station's stored energy converted into a coherent beam of light, invisible to the naked eye, and lanced down towards the ancient rock of Gibraltar. For a moment, nothing. Jay watched the surface scan. Old stone, blue water. Then, a flicker. At the base of the rock, where the sea met the stone, the water shimmered. Not with heat, but with a pale blue light. It was there for only a second before fading. But it was enough. It was an answer. And the answer did not stop deep within the earth. A trickle of power was received. It was less than a drop in an ocean, but it was the correct drop in the correct place. In the Mariana Trench, where pressures could crush starships, a seam in the ocean floor, long mistaken for a natural fault, glowed with the same pale blue light. In the frozen silence of the Ross Ice Shelf, a geometric pattern of light etched itself into the ice for a mile before fading. The diagnostic was passing. Back on the orbital, alarms sounded. Not loud, urgent alarms, but the soft, chiding beeps of a system noticing an irregularity. The planetary monitoring array was reporting new energy signatures. Tiny, fleeting, but they were there. And they were artificial. Commander Tay's voice came over the station intercom. All personnel, report to briefing room. Now. The room was tense. Tay stood at the front, the new data on a screen behind him. We have confirmed anomalous energy signatures from multiple locations on Earth, he said, his face grim. They coincide with an unscheduled systems test on the cum laser. I want an explanation. Sujin stood up. She did not look at Hana. The test was my idea, Commander. I believe the earlier tremor warranted a low-power active scan. I used a historical coordinate to focus it. I take full responsibility. Tay stared at her. You disobeyed a direct order. I did, she said. And now we have proof the order was wrong. Those signatures are not natural. Something under Gibraltar, under the trench, responded to our knock. Something is down there, Commander. And it is waking up. Before Tay could respond, the station shuddered. It was not a violent shake, but a deep, resonant vibration that passed through the hull and made their bones hum. The lights flickered, not from a power loss, but from a sudden, massive energy surge below them. Everyone rushed to the observation windows. Earth was changing. Not on the surface, but in its aura. The faint, shimmering belts of its magnetosphere, usually invisible, were suddenly glowing a soft, pulsing gold. They grew brighter, thicker, like muscles flexing after a long sleep. And from the dark side of the planet, where night reigned, they could see new lights. Not the lights of cities, but neat, geometric grids of faint blue and white, scattered across the continents and under the seas. They looked like circuit diagrams drawn on a planetary scale. The Galactic Compact Monitoring Station, a separate facility 1,000 kilometers away, sent a priority hail. The face of Counselor Vrox, a stern being with gray, pebbled skin, filled the main screen. Orbital GC091, report your status immediately. What is the cause of the planetary energy surge? Your logs show an unauthorized energy discharge. Tay, pale, straightened his uniform. Counselor, we are investigating. We have detected what appear to be pre-collapse systems reactivating. Vrox's large eyes narrowed. Pre-collapse systems are debris. They are dead. You have clearly triggered some form of unstable geothermal event with your incompetence. Stand by. A compact cruiser is being diverted to your location to assume control and contain this environmental incident. The screen went dark. The word incident hung in the air, insulting in its smallness. J, still at the window, looked at the glowing networks on the planet below. He thought of the archive, full of silent small things. He had been wrong. Humanity's legacy was not in the small, silent things. It was in the planet itself. They hadn't built monuments. They had built an engine. And the silent engines had finally stirred. The waiting was the worst part. For 3 days, the orbital station hung in space, a tiny bubble of light and fear next to a waking giant. The geometric lights on the dark side of Earth had not faded. They pulsed, a slow, steady rhythm like a resting heartbeat. The planet's energized magnetosphere now glowed with a constant, soft gold light, visible even against the blue of the day side. It was beautiful, and it was terrifying. Commander Tay had placed Sujin under restricted duty, but it was meaningless. Every system on the station was tied into the planetary monitoring array, and the array was going wild. She watched from her quarters, her screen alive with data. Energy readings were climbing, not in spikes, but in a smooth, relentless curve. Deep within the Earth, temperatures were rising in precise, localized zones, not volcanic, but thermal. Like enormous engines coming up to operating temperature. J spent every waking moment in the archive. He was no longer searching for fragments. He was trying to understand the language of the waking giant. With Hana's discreet help, he had accessed deeper, more corrupted files. He found lists with names that made his skin prickle. Atma's guardians, gravity anchors, Solforge. They were not weapons. They sounded like parts of a life support system. But for a planet. Old Yun found him there, amidst the glowing screens. The elderly man's eyes, usually clouded with memory, were clear and sharp. They called it the cradle, Yun said, his voice a dry whisper. Not a tomb, a cradle. The stories say we were too loud, too fast. The galaxy was a dark forest, full of older, hungrier things. So our ancestors decided to make the crib into a fortress, to sleep until we were forgotten, and then to wake up safe. A fortress against what? Jay asked. Against everything, Yun said simply. The engines were not for leaving. They were for making sure nothing could ever make us leave again. On the 4th day, the compact cruiser arrived. It was a sleek, gray vessel, shaped like a blade. It moved with silent authority, taking up a position between the orbital station and Earth. Counselor Vrox's face appeared on their screens again, this time from the cruiser's bridge, orbital GC-091. By the authority of the Galactic Compact Memorial Directive, we are assuming control of all monitoring functions. You will transmit all data from the inception of this anomaly. Your personnel are to remain in quarantine. The phenomenon below is being classified as a Class 3 post-extinction geological upheaval. We will begin containment procedures. Containment? Sujin said aloud in her quarters, her blood going cold. She opened a channel to Jay and Hana, a private loop they had set up. They think it's a natural disaster. They're going to try to stop it. They can't stop that. Jay's voice came back, hushed with horror. On the main station screen, they watched as the cruiser deployed 3 smaller pods. They were damping probes, designed to settle into the upper atmosphere and emit energy-nullifying fields. They were used to calm unstable stellar weather or contain reactor meltdowns on primitive worlds. The probes shot towards the glowing golden. GNETOSPHERE. The first probe touched the shimmering energy field. There was no explosion. No dramatic burst of light. The probe simply stopped. It froze in space, held in the golden glow. Then, in the blink of an eye, it was gone. Not destroyed, dissolved. Its atoms seemed to come apart and flow into the glowing field, adding to its light. The second and third probes met the same fate. Silence filled the cruiser's com channel, then a burst of static and confused alien speech. From the surface of Earth, a new light answered. In the dead center of the Pacific Ocean, a column of solid blue-white light erupted, not into the sky, but into space. It was perfectly straight, perfectly calm. It touched the now intensified golden magnetosphere and spread like paint on glass. Where it spread, the golden light thickened, solidified, becoming a visible, honeycombed lattice of immense complexity. It encapsulated the entire planet in a matter of minutes, a shimmering, beautiful, impossible shell. It's a shield, Sujin breathed. The Atma's guardian. They're not containing an upheaval. They're locking the doors. Counselor Vrox's voice returned, tight with a new, strained authority. GC091, what is the nature of this energy barrier? Your historical records must have something. Jay, acting on an instinct he didn't understand, ran not to the data screens, but to a physical storage crate. It was labeled Cultural Artifacts, Unidentified. He tore it open. Inside, among broken tools and rusted metal, was a smooth black stone disc, about the size of his hand. It was featureless. On a whim, driven by the pulse of energy he could almost feel through the station walls, he pressed it against his terminal. The terminal screen went black, then glowed with the same golden light as the shield. Archaic human script, pre-collapse unified command, scrolled across it. It was not a file. It was a status report, Cradle Systems Online data TMOS-Guardian, activated. Gravity Anchor Network, standby. Geothermal core. TAP, 12% capacity. Biological recovery protocols, initiated. Foreign orbital objects. Analyzing. It's analyzing us, Hannah said over the private channel, her professional calm finally cracking. It sees the station. It sees the cruiser. As if hearing her, the status updated. Foreign orbital object, designated GC091. Classification, caretaker platform. No threat. Foreign orbital object, designated compact vessel CX-77. Classification, unknown. Threat potential, low. Defensive protocols, active. The cruiser, as if challenging this assessment, powered up its primary engines, a clear threat display. It moved closer to the shimmering honeycomb shield. The response was instant and localized. A single hexagon in the vast shield, directly in front of the cruiser, pulsed brightly. A beam of coherent gravity, invisible but devastating, lanced out. It did not hit the cruiser. It struck a small, uninhabited moonlet 100 kilometers away, a leftover piece of debris. The moonlet, half a kilometer across, compressed. It crumpled in on itself silently, becoming a sphere, then a dot, then nothing. It was erased from existence with calm, effortless finality. The message was clear. The shield was not just a barrier. It was a reactive defense system of unimaginable power. And it had perfect aim. The cruiser's engines cut off. It hung in space, utterly still. Inside the orbital station, the black stone disk in Jay's hand grew warm. The golden script changed again. It was no longer a status report. It was an invitation, or perhaps a command. Primary interface required. Proceed to anchor point Alpha. A set of coordinates flashed on the screen, matching a location in the mountains of what was once called Korea. Jay looked at Sujin's face on his private screen. She looked at Hannah. The silent understanding passed between them. The compact was no longer in charge. The galaxy's assumptions were irrelevant. The caretakers were being summoned. The giant was not just stirring. It was awake, and it was asking for its children to come home. The silence on the orbital station was heavier than the vacuum outside. The compact cruiser hung motionless, a predator frozen by the sheer, impossible scale of the prey's defense. The honeycomb shield around Earth pulsed with a slow, golden light, a heartbeat that vibrated through the very fabric of local space.j. Sujin and Hana met in a deserted maintenance corridor, the only place they could speak without being overheard. The black stone disk in Jay's hand was cool again, but the coordinates it had shown were burned into his mind. Anchor Point Alpha, Sujin said, pulling up a topographic map. The location was in a remote, mountainous region, now overgrown by a forest 5 centuries old. It's a direct summons. The system wants a human interface. Or it's a trap, Hana said, but her voice lacked conviction. She had seen the moonlit disappear. If the system wanted them gone, they would be gone. The compact will not allow us to go. Commander Tay has orders to keep everyone aboard. The cruiser is watching. As if summoned by her words, Commander Tay's voice came over the station intercom. It sounded tired, defeated. All personnel, report to the main briefing room immediately. Counselor Vrox will address us. They filed in with the rest of the station's small crew. On the main screen, Counselor Vrox looked different. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a strained, calculating calm. The phenomenon has been reclassified, he began, his translated voice flat. It is now a Kardashev Type 1 civilization re-engagement event. Historical files are being re-examined. Until the Galactic Compact Assembly determines a course of action, all human personnel are to remain in place as cultural liaisons. You will facilitate communication between the Compact and this awakening system. Jay understood the real meaning immediately. They were no longer caretakers. They were hostages, or bargaining chips. The Compact, faced with something it could not control, wanted to control the people who might understand it. When the address ended, Hana pulled Jay and Sujin aside. They will not let us go down there. We are too valuable as prisoners. If we are going to answer that summons, we have to do it now. They had one chance. The station had a single old planetary shuttle. It was used once a year to place memorial plaques on the surface, a solemn ritual. It was slow, unarmed, and required manual piloting. Its next scheduled use was months away. Sujin knew she could prep it in 2 hours if she bypassed the safety locks. Hana could create a false authorization window in the station's traffic control, a narrow gap where the shuttle's launch would look like a system glitch. Jay's job was to get the stone disk and himself to the shuttle bay. The plan was madness. It was also the only path forward that felt like their own choice. The next 90 minutes were a blur of quiet, frantic action. Sujin, moving with a technician's precision, disabled the shuttle's remote lockouts and initiated its ancient chemical engines. Hana, at her console, fed false sensor ghosts to the station's traffic system, her heart pounding with every keystroke. Jay, with the stone disk hidden in his jacket, simply walked towards the shuttle bay, nodding politely to the few crew members he passed. No one stopped him. They were all staring at the view screens, at the golden shield and the silent cruiser. He met Sujin in the bay. The shuttle was a small, boxy craft, its white paint faded. The hatch was open. "Where's Hana?" Jay asked. "She's coming," Sujin said, her eyes on her portable screen. "She has to lock in the final override." A moment later, Hana jogged into the bay, still in her compact liaison uniform. "They'll know in 3 minutes," she said, breathing hard. "We need to be gone by then." They sealed the hatch. Sujin took the pilot's seat, her hands flying over the controls. The shuttle bay doors responding to Hannah's forged codes, began to grind open, revealing the deep black and the glowing curve of Earth below. The shuttle lurched forward on its magnetic rails and was pushed gently out into space. For a moment, they drifted, a speck against the planet-sized shield. Then Sujin fired the engines. They were not fast. They moved like a leaf falling towards a campfire. Alarms sounded on the station. Commander Tay's voice crackled over the shuttle's comm. "Shuttle 1, you are not authorized. Return immediately. This is a direct order." Then Counselor Vrox's voice, cold and sharp, cut in. "Human craft, you will halt your descent. You are interfering with a compact diplomatic incident. Your actions will have consequences." Sujin switched off the comm. The only sound was the hum of the shuttle and the thrum of their own blood. The golden shield loomed before them, a vast, shimmering wall of impossible energy. They were heading straight for it. Jay clutched the stone disk. It had begun to glow with a warm, gentle light. "What if it doesn't let us through?" Hannah whispered, staring at the radiant hexagons. "It called us," Jay said, hoping it was true. The shield did not vaporize them. As they neared, a single hexagon directly in their path shimmered and became transparent, like a clearing in a golden fog. The shuttle passed through without a ripple. Behind them, the hexagon sealed shut. The view took their breath away. Inside the shield, the sky was different. The familiar blue was deeper, clearer. The atmosphere itself seemed to hum with vitality. And below, the changes were profound. The geometric lights they had seen from space were now visible as vast, elegant structures merging with the landscape. In the great deserts, silver towers rose, not ruining the land, but framing it. In the oceans, massive, gentle shapes moved under the waves, cleaning and regulating. The air smelled different through the ship's filters clean, charged, alive. The shuttle followed the guidance from the stone disk, which now projected a soft golden path on the front window. It led them to the mountains. They sat down in a small, hidden valley where the trees had parted to form a perfect landing circle. Before them was a doorway carved into the living rock. It was simple, elegant, and it irised open as they approached. Inside, the air was cool and still. The walls were smooth, glowing with the same soft gold light. At the center of the chamber was a raised dais. On it was a single, simple interface. AHANDPRINT.J, without hesitation, stepped forward. He placed his hand on the print. Light flooded the chamber. Images, data, and understanding flowed into his mind, not as words, but as pure knowledge. He saw it all. The decision, millennia ago, to retreat. The long, patient construction of the cradle systems. The great engines buried deep, not for war, but for eternal peace. The Atmos Guardian to control climate and block threats. The gravity anchors to stabilize the planet against any cosmic force. The Sol Forge, a network to manage energy from the sun. It was a vision of a world made forever safe, forever whole. A world that could never be taken, never be threatened. Sovereignty written into the bones of the planet. He saw the truth of the collapse. It had been a grand, silent exodus into fortified shelters, a waiting game played across centuries. The ancestors had not died. They had slept, and their children had forgotten. J removed his hand, staggering back. Sujin caught him. "What is it? What did you see?" Tears streamed down his face, but he was smiling. "We didn't fail," he breathed. "We didn't die. We hid. We waited until the galaxy would leave us alone. And now we're home. And home is a fortress." He looked at them, his eyes shining with the reflected gold of the chamber. "They're not asking us to come back. They're telling us we never left." Inside the mountain, The silence was the kind found in the heart of a cathedral. The golden light from the walls pulsed gently, matching the slow, deep rhythm they could now feel in the stone beneath their feet, the heartbeat of the earth's engines. Jay's mind was still reeling from the flood of knowledge. Sujin and Hana looked at him, waiting. "It's called the cradle," Jay said, his voice filled with quiet awe. "It was never about escaping Earth. It was about making Earth invincible, to wait out the darkness of the galaxy. They hid, they slept, and they left the engines to guard their sleep, and to wake them when it was safe." Hannah, ever practical, glanced back towards the shuttle. "The compact cruiser is still up there. They saw us come through the shield. They will demand answers. What do we tell them?" Before Jay could answer, the chamber's interface shimmered. A holographic image appeared above the dais, not a person, but a representation of the Earth itself, encircled by golden lines of force. A calm, neutral voice, synthesized from ancient records, filled the room. Primary interface confirmed. Caretaker lineage recognized. The galactic compact vessel is hailing on multiple frequencies. Their requests are escalating. How do you wish to proceed? The three humans looked at each other. In that moment, the last chains of their old lives fell away. They were not representatives of the compact. They were not caretakers of a dead world. They were the first children to walk into their reborn home. The responsibility was immense, and theirs alone. "We will answer them," Jay said, his voice firmer now. "But not as subordinates. As neighbors." The holographic earth shimmered. A vessel is prepared. Outside the mountain, the ground shifted. From a hidden hangar carved into the adjacent cliff, a craft rose. It was unlike anything they had seen, sleek and organic, shaped like a teardrop, with surfaces that seemed to drink in the sunlight. It made no sound. It settled softly before them, a hatch opening in its side. This was not a shuttle. It was an envoy's vessel, built by the silent engineers of a past age. They boarded. The interior was seamless, with seats that formed around them. There were no controls. The voice from the mountain was now in the craft. "I will convey you. State your intent." Sujin spoke. "Take us to a point just inside the shield, facing the compact cruiser. Open a communications channel." The craft lifted, faster and smoother than anything they had ever experienced. In moments, they were back in space, hovering just inside the immense golden honeycomb. Before them, on the other side of the shimmering energy, the gray compact cruiser hung like a wasp. A screen formed in the air inside the craft. Counselor Vrox's face appeared. He looked tense. Behind him, his bridge crew was a blur of anxious activity. "Human vessel," Vrox began, his tone attempting its old authority, but cracking at the edges. "You have violated compact directives. You will return to your station immediately for debriefing." Hannah leaned forward. She was still in her liaison uniform, a symbol of the authority that now meant nothing. "That is no longer possible, Counselor. We are not on your station. We are home." Vrox's large eyes narrowed. "You are in the middle of an unstable planetary phenomenon. You are in danger?" "You misunderstand," Jay said, his voice calm. He held up the black stone disk, which glowed warmly. "There is no phenomenon. There is no danger. There is only a system, waking up after a long, planned sleep. You have not been curating a memorial, Counselor. You have been standing guard outside a fortress that chose not to notice you." A flicker of something fear perhaps crossed Vrox's face. "You are claiming this display is the work of your ancestors?" "We are not claiming anything," Sujin said. "We are explaining. The engines you see are not weapons. They are shields, stabilizers, life support systems on a planetary scale. Their purpose is not to threaten the galaxy. It is to ensure that the galaxy can never threaten Earth again." Silence stretched across the communication link. Vrox was clearly receiving data, his eyes darting to readouts only he could see. The compact scientists were scrambling, finally understanding the scale and sophistication of what they were witnessing. This was not primitive reactivation. It was the activation of technology that matched or exceeded their own. Built on a scale they considered theoretical. "The Galactic Compact Assembly," Vrox said finally. His voice formal, "requests a delegation to discuss this." Development. To establish protocols. Jay shook his head slowly. No, the bluntness of the words seemed to shock the counselor. "I beg your pardon? We are not requesting membership. We are not applying for recognition," Jay said. The knowledge from the mountain was solid inside him. "We are informing you. Humanity has returned to sovereign control of its home system. The shield will remain. The systems will remain. We will communicate with the compact, but as equals. Not as a dead species to be studied, or a young one to be guided." Vrox was stunned into silence. No species in living memory had spoken to the compact this way. Hana delivered the final, quiet blow. "Your cruiser is currently in Earth's sovereign space, Counselor. You are advised to withdraw to a distance of 1 light minute. The cradle's defensive systems are patient, but they are definitive. You saw what happened to the moonlet." On the screen, they saw Vrox swallow hard. He gave a sharp, almost invisible nod to someone off-screen. Outside, the cruiser's engines glowed to life. It began to move backward, slowly, carefully, putting distance between itself and the shimmering, impossible shield dot. As it retreated, Jay spoke one last time. "Tell the assembly that Earth is open for dialogue. But the terms have changed. We did not die. We waited. And now our waiting is over." The communication screen faded. The three of them sat in the quiet of the ancient craft, watching the cruiser shrink against the stars. The enormity of what they had just done settled over them. The voice in the craft spoke again, gentle now. "The cradle systems are at 34% capacity and stabilizing. Biological recovery protocols are active. The sleepers are beginning to wake. Your guidance is requested." Jay looked at Sujin, then at Hana. They were not soldiers or diplomats or geniuses. They were an archivist, an engineer, and a liaison. But they were here. And they were home. "Take us back down," Jay said as their craft turned and descended through the golden shield, which parted for them like a curtain. They saw the changes continuing. Rivers ran clearer. Forests looked greener. The very air seemed to sparkle. Somewhere, deep in hidden shelters, millions of their brothers and sisters were stirring from a sleep that had lasted centuries. The galaxy had thought, humanity a sad, short-lived flame, extinguished before it could truly burn. They had been wrong. Humanity had not gone out. They had banked their fire, covered it with the ashes of their own silence, and waited. Now the ashes were blowing away. The fire was stirring. And the first thing the galaxy had felt was not its heat, but the unbreakable strength of the hearth that contained it. On the orbital station, Commander Tay and the others watched the golden shield pulse. A steady, constant rhythm against the dark. It was not the heartbeat of a machine. It was the heartbeat of a world. And it was no longer silent.